Chapter 1. Is that really what you think of me? Darling? The man's voice was low and magnetic, the depth in his eyes threatening to drown Serena Ashworth. Her heart pounded. Just as she was about to speak, the man on top of her phone rang. "Honey," Ethan Crawford said into the receiver, his voice tender. "All right, I'm coming home right now. Wait for me." Serena felt as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped over her. She stared at him in shock. "You're married, you have a wife." Why didn't she know? "Getting married tomorrow," he said, hooking her chin. The light in his eyes suddenly turned cold. "Don't come looking for me again." Forgetting to straighten her clothes, Serena grabbed Ethan's arm. "Ethan, how can you be getting married?" he sneered. "Should I marry you instead? A woman who'd do anything for money? You've been with me for 2 years and taken, what, $2 million from me. How come other men's mistresses aren't this expensive?" It felt like a resounding slap across her face. Serena stared in disbelief at the man who, just 10 minutes ago, had been so gentle and doting. She trembled all over. "Ethan, is that really what you think of me?" She loved him. She had fallen for him at first sight at a banquet 4 years ago. Back then, she was still the heiress of the Ashworth family, and he was the heir to the Crawford Corporation. 3 years ago, the Crawford Corporation ran into trouble, facing bankruptcy and massive compensation claims. When she heard the news, she went door to door, begging the Crawfords' clients. For one major deal, she stood in the rain for 3 days and nights before finally convincing the other party to sign. She even got money from her parents and sent it to the Crawford Corporation, temporarily solving their cash flow problem. After that, the company finally pulled through its crisis and grew larger and larger. But 2 years ago, it was the Ashworth family that fell into ruin, buried in debt after a contract was leaked. Unable to face the prospect of prison, her father leaped from the top of the Ashworth building. Her mother threw herself into the capital city river that same day. Serena lost both her parents in a single night. On top of that, her frail twin sister had always been in and out of the hospital, requiring enormous medical fees. 2 months later, unable to pay the hospital bills, she sought out Ethan, hoping he would help her for the sake of the help she had once given him. But for some reason, after she had her secretary explain her purpose, she received a call from the secretary saying Ethan wanted her to wait for him at a hotel. After that, every one of their meetings was in a hotel, and each time he would give her some money. "Think of you like this?" Ethan laughed, his tone even more mocking. "Don't act so high and mighty. You've been with me for 2 years. Let's just part on good terms. Don't make a scene. It'll make it harder for you to find your next mark." He finished, put on his clothes, picked up his checkbook, scribbled his name, and threw it in Serena's face. Serena clutched the check, her heart feeling like it was being ripped apart. Just then, her phone rang. She picked it up and her face instantly paled. At the hospital. "Doctor, how is my sister?" Serena asked anxiously. "Her lung alveoli have ruptured. She needs to be moved to the intensive care unit," the doctor said. "And we have to use that imported medication I mentioned, otherwise." The ICU cost $10,000 a day, plus the cost of that medicine, and the $100,000 she just received. She had already used it to pay off the $60,000 she owed in previous treatment fees. "What, you don't want to admit her?" the doctor asked. "We'll do it," Serena gritted her teeth. "I'll go pay the fees right now. You need to pay for 3 days up front. A deposit of $50,000 should do it," the doctor said. Serena looked up. "Can I pay $40,000 first? Then the rest must be paid by tomorrow," the doctor stated. That day, Selena Ashworth was moved into the ICU. The next day, Serena arrived at Ethan Crawford's wedding. She had no other choice. Though she knew she would be humiliated, she could only turn to him for money. Chapter 2. He was getting married, the wedding hadn't started yet. As soon as Serena walked in, she saw the romantic stage, overflowing with fresh flowers. She felt another sharp stab in her heart, but she understood that in her current state, she was no match for him. Right now, all she wanted was to save her only living relative. Just as she was about to look for Ethan, she was yanked into a room. "Didn't I tell you not to come looking for me?" Ethan's eyes were filled with cruelty. "Wasn't the money I gave you yesterday enough?" "Ethan," Serena felt herself trampling her dignity into the dust. "Yes, I came to borrow money." "Hech," Ethan sneered. "How much this time?" $1 million, Serena said, biting her lip. She had asked the doctor again yesterday. He said Selena's follow-up treatments would cost over $900,000 in total. Serena Ashworth, who do you think you are? Ethan shoved her away and turned to leave. Ethan, please, Serena looked at him desperately. Please lend it to me. I really need this money to save a life. I'll find a way to pay you back in the future. Find a way? Ethan's eyes flashed with horror. Pay me back with money from another man? The thought ignited a sudden rage in his chest, a fire that burned so hot it hurt. Ethan, don't be like this. You're getting married today. Don't you want money? Just then, there was a knock on the door behind them. Soon, a woman in a wedding dress rushed in. You too, she gasped, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan, how could you? Ethan's face changed. He pushed Serena away. Rosalind, my love, I'm sorry. Let me explain. I know. She must have seduced you, right? Rosalind, Vance said, walking up to Serena and slapping her hard across the face. Tramp, but when Serena saw the woman's face clearly, she was utterly stunned. Sister? Rosalind Vance was an orphan the Ashworth family had adopted. In the past, Serena had treated Rosalind incredibly well. Whatever she and her sister had, they would always share a portion with their adopted sister. And Rosalind had always acted gentle and graceful at home, endearing herself to their adoptive parents. But 2 years ago, when the Ashworth family fell, Rosalind's true colors showed. She left without a second thought, not even attending her adoptive parents' funerals. Who would have thought that 2 years later, she would reappear as Ethan Crawford's bride? Serena, how could you become like this? Rosalind looked at Serena with a pained expression. You were once the great heiress of the Ashworth family. How could you seduce men? How can you face Mom and Dad in their graves? Serena scrambled up from the floor and looked at her former sister with a cold smile. Sister, you have the nerve to mention Mom and Dad? Why wouldn't she? It was Ethan who spoke. Rosalind was the one who worked through the night to pay for your parents' funeral expenses. And you. All you knew how to do was climb the social ladder. Chapter 3. No way out climb the social ladder? Serena's chest heaved. If she had been climbing the social ladder, how could the Ashworth family have ended up in such a state? Just then, someone from outside announced it was almost time, urging the bride and groom to prepare for the ceremony. Ethan wrapped his arm around Rosalind's waist, his voice gentle. Honey, let's go. Wait. Serena grabbed the man's clothes and held out her hand. The money? In that instant, the murderous look in the man's eyes could have sliced her to pieces. He pulled a checkbook and pen from his trouser pocket, quickly signed his name, and threw it at her. You got off easy. Serena picked up the check from the floor, her vision blurring as she watched the man walk away. As she was leaving, she heard the groom say to the bride, his voice gentle yet firm, I do. Serena swayed, lowered her head, and hurried away. This was it. This was how her story with him ended. She rushed to the hospital, but just as she reached the entrance, someone on a motorcycle snatched her bag. Serena cried out and chased after them as fast as she could, but how could she outrun a motorcycle? She watched helplessly as the motorcycle disappeared, her bag containing the $25,000 she had just received life-saving money gone with it. Serena collapsed onto the ground in despair. She borrowed a phone from a passerby and called the police. By the time she finished giving her statement, it was already afternoon. She returned to the hospital and was just approaching the ICU when a doctor hurried over. Why weren't you answering your phone? Your sister needed surgery, and we couldn't get a signature because no family was present. How is my sister? Serena asked quickly. We could only provide conservative treatment, the doctor said. Thankfully, she's stabilized for now. Have you paid the follow-up fees? Serena lowered her eyes. I'm working on it. She left the inpatient building, bought a cheap $200 phone, got a new SIM card, and waited for a call from the police station. It wasn't until evening that they finally called, telling her they had caught the culprits, but the money had been transferred and would take time to recover. Serena felt as if she had been doused with ice water. Her sister's life was hanging by a thread. If she couldn't pay the fees, she went back to her apartment and packed up all her belongings. All her belongings, in truth, amounted to just 2 suitcases. That night, she called her landlord and begged him for a long time before he finally agreed to refund her remaining $6,000 in rent and deposit. Night fell. Serena sat on a bridge, dragging her 2 suitcases, watching the bright moon hang high in the dark sky. She thought dazedly that at this moment, Ethan was probably celebrating his wedding night with Rosalind. She spent the entire night on that bridge. The next morning, Serena felt sore all over, and her head throbbed with pain. She went to a pawn shop and placed a ring on the counter. It was something her mother had repeatedly told her she must never lose. But she had no other choice. The pawn shop clerk couldn't tell if the ring was valuable, so he asked Serena to wait and went into the back. As it happened, the owner was in today, a rare occurrence. Seeing the clerk with the item, he asked casually, "What is it?" It was the clerk's first time meeting the big boss, and he stammered, "Sir, I was just about to have Mr. Wang take a look." "Let me see," the man said. He took the ring from the clerk. When he saw the pattern and the inscription, his gaze sharpened. "Who brought this in? Take them to the reception room. I want to see them with that." He quickly made a phone call. Chapter 4. Have a child for me outside. Serena waited anxiously. She desperately hoped the ring would fetch a high price, yet she feared she wouldn't even be able to keep her mother's last memento. As her heart churned with anxiety, the pawnshop clerk told her their boss wanted to see her in the reception room. Sensing that the ring might be more significant than she thought, Serena walked in, her feelings a tangled mess. The pawnshop owner, a man in his 40s, was holding her ring when he entered. He asked, "Miss, you wish to pawn this ring?" Serena nodded. "Sir, how much can you offer for it?" "Are you in desperate need of money?" he asked instead. Serena gave a bitter smile. "This was my mother's. If I weren't desperate, I would never consider pawning it. Go to this address." The pawnshop owner handed her a business card. "Be there at 7 this evening. You'll get what you want." Serena's heart pounded. "Sir, what do you mean?" "Take the ring back," the owner said. "If you want the money, do as I say." Serena left in a daze, holding the business card and the ring. She went to the hospital first. Selena was awake, her face pale and gaunt, so frail she looked as if a gust of wind could blow her away. "Sister, don't worry about me anymore. I heard the doctors. My illness costs so much. Selena squeezed Serena's hand. "I'm your sister, not your burden. I don't want you to run around for me anymore." "It's okay, Selena, I've found a way," Serena said, smiling at her sister. "Do you remember the ring Mom left us? It's very valuable. I've already inquired. I'm going to exchange it for money tonight, and then you can have your surgery." Selena looked doubtful, but seeing Serena's warm smile, she nodded. "Okay, sister, I want to get better soon too. I want to work with you, to earn money together. I can't be a burden to you anymore." "What are you talking about, a burden?" Serena smiled, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I'm lucky to have you. Otherwise, I don't know how I would have carried on." Selena was still very weak, so she fell asleep after talking for a short while. That evening, Serena went to the address the pawnshop owner had given her. Truthfully, if she hadn't been at her wit's end, a young woman like her would never dare to go to a place that looked like it was in the middle of nowhere. But she had no choice. At worst, she would lose her body, her life. Serena arrived at the address on the card and found a standalone villa, surrounded by desolate land. The villa stood alone in the center, looking somewhat eerie. She went to the door and knocked. Soon, the door was opened by a maid in her 40s. "Sir is already waiting for you inside," the maid said, leading Serena to a room. Serena's heart leaped into her throat. She knocked lightly on the door. A man's voice from inside, low and pleasant, sounded quite young. "Come in." Serena pushed the door open and discovered the room's curtains were drawn and no lights were on. Using the light from the hallway, she could see a tall, well-built man standing with his back to her. He exuded an intensely commanding aura. "Close the door," he said flatly. Serena's palms grew sweaty, but she turned and closed the door. Instantly, the room was plunged into darkness. Serena's breathing tightened. "Sir, it's closed." Serena Ashworth, 22 years old, a local, parents deceased with only a twin sister, the man stated calmly. Height 164 cm, weight 90 pounds, blood type. Serena was startled, but then realized her information wasn't a secret. It would be simple for him to find out. She replied, "Yes." "You're in desperate need of money? How much do you want?" The man must have turned around. Serena felt him approaching, step by step, and the oppressive pressure made it hard for her to breathe. $1 million, she said. "Done," he said crisply, "but on one condition, give me the ring, and in 1 year have a child for me." Chapter 5. I agree. Serena's eyes flew open. She thought she must have misheard, but the room was pitch black. She couldn't see the man's face. "Did you hear my conditions?" his low, magnetic voice asked, devoid of any warmth. "I'll give you 1 minute to consider." In the silent darkness, Serena's heart hammered in her chest. The hairs on her arms stood on end. Though she had 1,000 questions, she knew she only had one choice. "I don't need a minute," she said, looking at the indistinct silhouette before her. "I agree." "Good." The man didn't seem surprised by her answer. "Give me the ring," he said flatly. Serena placed the ring in his palm. He took it and said coolly, "You may now proceed to the second step." Serena's breath hitched. She didn't dare move. "What, you want me to help you?" His voice held a faint trace of impatience. Serena gritted her teeth. "I'll do it myself." She told herself $1 million. "For my sister's illness, I can do anything." She fought back the tears welling in her eyes. But just as she was about to lie down, a ringing sound shattered the silence. Serena's phone lit up the dark room. She quickly reached for it, intending to hang up, but then she saw it was a call from the hospital. She swiped to answer. "Hello, is this a relative of Selena Ashworth?" A woman's voice asked from the other end. "This is she," Serena said anxiously. "How is my sister?" "She's missing," the woman said. "She was fine during rounds this afternoon, but now we can't find her anywhere." Serena's heart seized. She knew Selena's condition better than anyone. If she left the hospital, the consequences would be, "Have you checked the security footage?" Serena asked. "Her body can't handle being outside the hospital." "We checked. It seems she left after receiving a phone call and looking at her phone," the woman said. "You should come over right away." "Okay, I'm on my way," Serena said quickly. She hung up, only then remembering the unidentified man in front of her. She had barely uttered a sound when the man cut her off. "Leaving?" He asked flatly. "I'm sorry, sir. My sister is missing. I have to go find her immediately," Serena said. "I'll keep the ring as a deposit," the man said coolly. "I hope you won't change your mind." Serena was frantic with worry and had no time to ask for the ring back. "Okay, sir. Please wait until I've found my sister." She left quickly. To her surprise, the maid had arranged a car for her, and in less than an hour, she was at the hospital. The hospital room was just as she had left it. Serena's eyes swept across the room and spotted the phone on the bed. She knew Selena's passcode and unlocked it immediately. When she saw the photos on the screen, her face turned deathly pale. They were pictures of her and Ethan Crawford in bed. What they were doing was unmistakable. Serena's fingers trembled as she continued to scroll. There were more photos like that, at different times and places, but with the same subjects dragged through the mud. At the end was a message. "Now you know where your hospital fees came from, my naive little sister. If you want to continue being a parasite on your sister, then stay put in the hospital. If not, you know what to do." Chapter 6. Tasting despair, Serena saw that the message came from an anonymous number, but she didn't even have to think to know who sent it. Her eyes turned crimson as she spat out a name. Rosalind Vance. No, it wasn't just Rosalind without Ethan's consent. How could Rosalind have gotten these photos? Clutching the phone, Serena rushed out of the hospital. After learning about this, Selena would have undoubtedly gone to Ethan's villa to find her. Her sister was probably there forgetting everything else. Serena hailed a taxi and told the driver to hurry to the Crawford villa. At some point, the sky had opened up and a heavy rain began to fall. The poor visibility at night slowed the driver down. As they neared the villa complex, they hit a traffic jam for some unknown reason. Serena quickly paid the fare, threw open the door, and ran out. As she ran forward, she saw under the streetlights that a crowd had gathered on the road outside the villa. She could hear the sound of police sirens. A loud buzzing filled Serena's head. A terrible premonition seized her, squeezing the air from her lungs. Her body tensed as she sprinted toward the crowd. The rain quickly soaked her through. She splashed through puddles, pushed her way through the onlookers, and saw the slender figure lying on the ground. Her heart felt like it had been struck by a heavy blow. Shaking violently, Serena stumbled toward the figure. Selena, her voice was trembling and sharp, cutting through the rainy night with a chilling coldness. On the ground, Selena lay motionless. Her wet hair clung to her cheeks, making her already pale face look even more ashen. Just as Serena reached out, a police officer stopped her. "Miss, are you a relative of the deceased?" "What? Deceased?" Serena whipped her head around, her eyes filled with overwhelming panic. "We received a report and found this young lady already deceased when we arrived," the officer said. "If you are her relative, please come with us to give a statement." Serena trembled uncontrollably, her voice shrill and desolate. "My sister isn't dead. She can't be. I need to take her to the hospital." She fumbled for her phone. "I'll call 911. Just wait. I'm calling 911." Beside her, the officer shook his head. "Miss, she's no longer breathing. Her lung alveoli ruptured, so her breathing is weak, but she'll be fine once we get to the hospital." Serena clung to the last shred of hope, dialing 911 with a shaking voice. "Operator, I'm at the entrance of the Hillcrest Villa complex. My sister has collapsed. Please send help quickly." By the end, she had sunk to her knees, tears and rain streaming down her face, a picture of helpless despair. Seeing this, the officer felt a pang of sympathy and didn't press her further, waiting quietly for the ambulance to arrive. Soon, the ambulance reached the area. Because of the traffic, the paramedics had to come on foot. After checking Selena's condition, a paramedic shook his head. "Miss, my condolences. Your family member has been deceased for over half an hour." Hearing this, Serena collapsed onto the ground. Her eyes were vacant. She stared into the rain for a moment before slowly turning to look at her sister's body on the ground. Slowly, she leaned down, lifted her sister, and held her tightly in her arms, refusing to let go. "Selena, don't leave me, Selena. It's just the two of us left in our family. Please don't leave your sister, okay?" she cried in despair. "Please stay with me, okay?" Chapter 7. The truth the onlookers couldn't bear to watch any longer and began to disperse. Serena didn't even remember how she left the villa entrance. All she knew was that, when she woke up the next morning, someone informed her it was time to see her sister one last time before Selena was sent to the crematorium. Under the white sheet, Selena's eyes were closed tightly, her pale cheeks tinged with a grayish-blue hue. She was lifeless, even more so than when she was about to be wheeled into the ICU. Serena's hand trembled as she stroked Selena's face, tears streaming down. "Selena, I'm sorry. I didn't take good care of you, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I failed to protect my sister." That day, Selena's ashes were collected. When Serena left the crematorium, she was holding a blue and white porcelain urn. Her expression was numb and empty. She stumbled over something on the ground, nearly falling, which finally brought her back to her senses. She clutched the urn tightly and looked up at the sky. She had nothing left, truly nothing. Just then, she overheard a conversation. "Rosalind Vance is so beautiful. I heard the Crawfords gave her a luxury car right after she married into the family. Mr. Crawford must really love her. I heard they've known each other for years. I'm so envious." Serena slowly turned her vacant eyes, her mind gradually coming back to life. Ethan Crawford, Rosalind Vance, it was them. They sent Selena that message, which is why she left the hospital and went to the villa complex. They were her sister's murderers. A fierce hatred erupted in Serena's eyes. Cradling Selena's urn, she rushed to the police station. "I want to file a report. Ethan Crawford and Rosalind Vance murdered my sister." Serena's chest heaved. She took out Selena's phone. "They sent her this message. That's why my sister died." A police officer took the phone and frowned slightly as he looked at the photos inside. At that moment, Serena cared about nothing else. She just wanted those two to pay with their lives. "Miss, do you have any other evidence that they killed your sister?" the officer asked. Serena shook her head. "No, but because of this, my sister went to the Crawford villa. She was seriously ill and couldn't leave the hospital, let alone be out in the rain." "I'm sorry, miss, but this is not sufficient evidence," the officer said apologetically. "If you have other proof, you can file another report. Of course, you can also hire a lawyer to sue, but the current evidence is not enough to open a case." No matter what else Serena said, the police maintained the same position. Dejected, she left and went to the Crawford villa. As Ethan was driving Rosalind home, he saw Serena sitting by the side of the road. He frowned and stopped the car. Just as he was about to get out, Rosalind spoke up. "Ethan, let me go talk to her." "All right." Ethan nodded. He always felt a surge of anger whenever he faced Serena. Serena looked up and saw Rosalind approaching. She immediately lunged forward, wanting to tear the woman in front of her to shreds. Rosalind seemed prepared. She quickly sidestepped and said coolly, "What, your sister's dead and you don't have money for a burial?" "You," Serena's eyes blazed with hatred. "Rosalind Vance, I'm going to kill you." "Ooh, I'm so scared," Rosalind sneered. By the way, there's another secret I haven't told you. She leaned closer to Serena and lowered her voice. Your sister didn't actually die from the rain. Before that, she got to experience being a woman for the first time. It was a little gift from my men. How about that? She didn't waste her 20 years after all. She should be thanking me on her way to the afterlife, right? Chapter 8. She wanted revenge. Serena's eyes widened in horror. She trembled violently from the pain and hatred. What did you just say? What a pity you had her cremated so quickly. All the evidence is gone now. Rosalind laughed sweetly. Go ahead, sue me if you have the guts. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. Rosalind's smile grew even brighter. I was very generous this time. I even let my husband have your sister. Tusk, what a shame. While he was sleeping with her, he was calling out your name. Serena lunged, ready to rip the woman apart, but before her hand could land, it was seized by a man. She turned and met Ethan's furious eyes. Serena Ashworth, that's enough, he said coldly, his grip tightening on her wrist, almost enough to break it. Ethan Crawford, you're animals. What did my sister ever do to you? How could you treat her like that? Serena screamed hoarsely. If you wanted to kill someone, you should have come for me. Why did you do that to her? Ethan frowned, about to ask what she meant, when Rosalind cut in. Hubby, let's not talk to this lunatic. I heard today that she even tried to seduce the doctors at the hospital. A wave of disgust washed over Ethan's eyes. He violently flung Serena's hand away. She lost her balance and fell to the ground, the pain in her tailbone so sharp she couldn't move. The two of them got back in the car and drove away. Serena dug her nails into her palms, her eyes burning with intense hatred. She had nothing left now. The barefoot are not afraid of those with shoes. She was going to kill them just then. The phone in her pocket rang. She didn't want to answer, but the persistent ringing was infuriating. She pulled it out to hang up but saw a private number on the screen. Her gaze froze. An idea sparked in her mind, and she answered the call. Serena Ashworth, it's me. The man's voice was low and pleasant, as if he were whispering right next to her ear. Sir, my sister is gone. Our deal, Serena began, but the man interrupted her. Your sister is gone, so you've lost your will to fight? His voice was tinged with coldness. Even in death, she would be heartbroken to see you like this. What do you mean? Serena pushed herself up from the ground. Haven't you thought about getting revenge for her? The man asked, his voice tempting. Of course I have. Serena stared at the distant villa and said, word by word, I will kill them. Is that so? The man's voice was laced with scorn. Kill them and die with them. Then your sister's injustice will never be righted. Serena's heart suddenly clenched. Sir, what are you suggesting? What if you could prove that your sister's death was not an accident, but was caused by others? The man said flatly. What if you could make those two wish they were dead? Serena's breathing quickened, her heart pounding against her ribs. Sir, you have a way? My offer still stands. Agree to my terms and I can help you achieve all of this. The man's tone was calm, yet carried an unshakable certainty. The light in Serena's eyes deepened. She took a deep breath. All right, sir. As long as you can help me get my revenge, I'll agree to anything. Having lost her only family, she was already in hell. So be it. She would make a deal with this unknown man to bring peace to her sister, her mother, and her father in the afterlife. Very good, the man said. The usual place, I'll be waiting. Serena hung up and went straight to the villa. It was just like last time, dark, cold, mysterious. She pushed open the door. There wasn't a sliver of light in the room, but this time she felt no apprehension or hesitation. She stripped off her clothes without a second thought. Chapter 9. The baby was born 1 year later. Miss, push harder. The head is coming out. All right, he's out, he's out. It's a boy. The room was filled with the bustling sounds of people coming and going. Serena lay weakly on the bed, her gaze shifting to the baby in the doctor's hands. My baby, she whispered, her body drenched in sweat. The doctor brought the baby over for her to see. A healthy 7 pounds, a chubby little boy. A slow smile spread across Serena's lips, a warmth flowing through her eyes. She had lost her sister, and for the past year she hadn't even seen the man's true face, but now she had her own flesh and blood, her baby. Can I hold him? She asked softly. The doctor shook his head. We still need to clean him up, after he's washed and Sir has seen him. The light in Serena's eyes dimmed. She knew that even giving birth was just fulfilling a transaction. She had no rights at all. The baby was quickly cleaned, wrapped in a blanket, and taken out of the room. When Serena woke up again, she was in a private room. The housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson, saw her wake up and handed her a bowl of porridge. "Miss, you must be hungry. Have something to eat." Serena was indeed hungry. She leaned against the headboard and finished the porridge, then asked, "Where's the baby?" "He's with Sir," Mrs. Peterson said. "Don't worry, you're the baby's mother. He still needs to be breastfed." "Can I be discharged?" Serena asked. "I want to see my baby." "Sir said you can leave tomorrow," Mrs. Peterson replied. The next day, Serena returned to the villa. Mrs. Peterson came over with the baby. "Miss, the baby is probably hungry. Let him nurse for a while." Serena nodded and took the baby, her eyes softening as if they could melt. Over the past year, with the help of the mysterious man, she had been gathering evidence piece by piece. Now, she had almost enough to bring Rosalind and Ethan to justice. However, to be absolutely certain, she still needed one crucial piece of video evidence. The baby in her arms seemed to have nursed for a while without getting any milk and started to fuss, letting out a few whimpers. Serena quickly soothed him and tried again. Finally, the baby latched on, his little mouth smacking contentedly, and he quieted down. Warmth flooded Serena's heart. She leaned down and kissed her baby's tender forehead. In the days that followed, Serena spent her time breastfeeding the baby and studying various subjects in her spare moments. She had already thought it through. Once the baby was weaned, her deal with the man would be over. By then, she needed to have the skills to make her own way in the world. She didn't know if the man would agree to co-parent the baby after he was weaned, but she would fight for it. To do that, she needed a skill. Her parents and sister were gone, but now she had a child. A mother's love makes her strong. After she got her revenge, she would live a good life so that when her time came, she could face those who cared about her without shame. Half a year flew by. The A City Court officially began the public trial for the death of Selena Ashworth, which had occurred a year and a half ago. Dressed in a black business suit, Serena appeared in the plaintiff's seat. In the defendant's dock sat Ethan Crawford and Rosalind Vance. Rosalind had become an A-list star, so many reporters were present at the trial, all vying for the headline. When Serena took her seat, Ethan's gaze shot toward her. Chapter 10. Taking them to court, he hadn't seen her in over a year, and Serena seemed to have gained a little weight. She wore no makeup, her skin fair, her features as pure as he remembered, but there was a new, gentle quality about her that he couldn't quite place. What surprised him most was that when she looked at him, her eyes no longer held the hatred of the past. Instead, there was only indifference, the kind you'd show a stranger. Seeing Ethan staring at Serena, Rosalind seethed with anger. But with the media present, she kept her composure and whispered softly, "Hubby, I'm a little scared." "Rosalind, my love, what's there to be afraid of?" Ethan's eyes were clear. "We didn't do anything wrong. We have nothing to fear." But this Serena Ashworth, she disappeared for a year and a half and suddenly reappeared. "I'm worried she's fabricated some evidence." Rosalind leaned timidly against Ethan. "You know I'm a public figure. Being dragged into something like this is already a huge headache. I'm so afraid she'll sling mud at me." "That woman is capable of anything. Rosalind, don't be afraid. You have me, and you have the Crawford family," Ethan said gently. "You saved the Crawford family back then, so the entire family will be your shield." Hearing the words, "You saved the Crawford family back then," Rosalind's face stiffened slightly. Besides Serena, Ethan's secretary also knew that she had taken credit for something she didn't do. However, she had leverage over the secretary, so it was unlikely she would confess. But now, Serena's sudden appearance and her confident demeanor made Rosalind's heart pound with suspicion. At that moment, the judge announced the court was in session. The lawyers for both sides took their places, and the plaintiff's attorney began his opening statement. "Your Honor, on behalf of my client, I am filing a lawsuit regarding the death of my client's sister, Miss Selena Ashworth, which occurred a year and a half ago." He presented a file. "I have here Miss Selena Ashworth's medical records from that time, as well as some communication records." Rosalind sat in the defendant's dock, her fingers clenched tightly under the table. She had used an anonymous number for that text message. It couldn't be traced back to her, right? The next second, the opposing lawyer displayed the number for all to see. "This number belongs to Miss Rosalind Vance. When Miss Vance registered this number, she did not use her ID. She thought the number was anonymous, But what she didn't realize was that, after registering it, she used the phone number to purchase in-game currency. This currency was used for a game account registered under her own ID. With that, he presented the relevant evidence. Rosalind's face paled. For a moment, it felt like she had been plunged into an icy abyss. But a moment later, her lawyer gave her a subtle look. So what if they could prove the number was hers? It only proved she sent those messages to Selena, not that she was responsible for her death. But just a moment later, Rosalind's heart sank again. The prosecution presented new evidence. This is a video of Miss Selena Ashworth leaving the hospital on that day. I request that the court play it, the plaintiff's lawyer said. Soon, an image of the hospital entrance appeared on the large screen. Sitting at the plaintiff's table, Serena watched the figure appear on the screen, and her eyes couldn't help but turn red. She had watched this footage more times than she could count, her heart aching with the thought that if only she could go back in time, she would never have left that day. Then, no matter what Rosalind said, she would have stopped her sister from leaving the hospital, but there was no going back. Chapter 11. Unraveling the layers in the video, after leaving the hospital, Selena hailed a taxi. A close-up showed the license plate number. Shortly after, the taxi's route appeared on the screen. It drove to a hotel, where Selena got out and walked straight inside. Seeing this, Ethan's eyes widened in the defendant's dock. Rosalind trembled. She had paid someone to destroy the hotel's external surveillance footage. How could it still exist? What methods had Serena used to recover a destroyed video? She felt like she was sitting on pins and needles, shaking uncontrollably. The scene shifted to inside the hotel, where Selena was pressing the elevator button. Next, she went up to the floor where Ethan's regular suite was located. She walked to the door of that room and rang the doorbell. Soon, the door opened, and the person who opened it was none other than Ethan. Since there were no cameras in the room, the footage ended after Selena entered. The plaintiff's lawyer turned to Ethan. "Mr. Crawford, may I ask what you and Miss Ashworth did in that room?" Before Ethan could answer, the defense attorney spoke up. "Objection," he continued. "The person in that video is not Miss Selena Ashworth, but the plaintiff, Miss Serena Ashworth." A murmur of shock rippled through the courtroom as everyone looked at the lawyer in confusion. He produced a stack of photos. "Everyone, please take a look. These are photos of Miss Serena Ashworth arriving at this hotel for a rendezvous with my client, Mr. Ethan Crawford. They were together for 2 years, and Miss Ashworth came to the hotel alone on countless occasions. As you all know, Miss Serena and Miss Selena Ashworth are identical twins, so I believe it's clear who is actually in that video." His words cast a shadow of doubt over Serena. Of course, the gossip-hungry reporters were furiously snapping pictures. They had only ever heard rumors about Ethan and Serena's affair, but now, these suggestive photos were undeniable proof. Rosalind's face turned shades of green and white. She trembled with rage. Although she had long known about Ethan and Serena's past and had even walked in on them more than once, knowing it herself was vastly different from having it exposed in a public court. Hearing the defense attorney's argument, Serena's lawyer remained calm. He said, "To prove whether the person in the video is Selena or Serena, I would like to ask the court to replay the footage. I need to focus on a few frames." The video was rewound. The lawyer had it paused on Selena's attire as she left the hospital and again as she entered the hotel. He zoomed in on a frame of Selena in front of the elevator. "Everyone, please pay close attention to this image. Now I would like to call a witness to the stand." Soon, a blonde, blue-eyed man walked into the courtroom. The crowd looked at him, puzzled, wondering why he was called to testify and what connection he had to the case. "Thank you for testifying, Mr. George," the lawyer said with a nod. "Everyone, please look at the video on the screen. The man standing in the elevator is Mr. George." With this pointer, the crowd noticed another person in the elevator, clearly visible as he was facing the camera. "Now, please look at another set of videos," the lawyer said, producing another file. Chapter 12. You Can't Fool My Eyes. This video was exceptionally clear, filmed from a different angle. It showed George exiting the elevator, brushing past Selena, and walking to the front desk to handle some business. One close-up even captured a distinctive mark on the back of George's hand. "Your Honor, I also have Mr. George's entry and exit records for this country, as well as his check in records at the hotel, the lawyer stated, presenting the evidence. On that day, it was Mr. George's first time in a city. Hearing this, Rosalind grew restless, her heart filled with anxiety. She glanced at her lawyer, who was frowning, deep in thought. "Mr. George, I have a few questions for you," the judge said. "Please ask away," George replied with a nod. "Have you seen the girl in the video before?" the judge asked. "I have. It was my first time in a city, and this girl was so striking that I remember her," George said. "She was very thin, wearing a hospital gown, and looked like she could collapse at any moment. I am a doctor, and I could tell at a glance that she was ill, specifically with a pulmonary issue." "Is it possible you were mistaken? For instance, if the plaintiff had been wearing a hospital gown?" the judge inquired further. "No," George stated firmly. "I have been practicing medicine for over 20 years. I can tell if a person is sick with just one look. If the plaintiff was not ill at the time, no matter how good her disguise, she couldn't have fooled my eyes." Instantly, the expressions in the room changed. So, Selena had really gone to the hotel and met Ethan. And what happens when a man and a woman are alone in a hotel room? It didn't take much imagination. The plaintiff's lawyer turned his gaze back to Ethan. "Mr. Crawford, I'll ask again. What did you and Miss Selena Ashworth do in that room?" Ethan's face was grim, his hands clenched into fists. He remained silent. His lawyer began, "My client, please have Mr. Crawford answer the question directly," the plaintiff's lawyer interrupted. A vein throbbed on Ethan's forehead. Finally, he spoke. "I thought the person in the room was Serena. I thought she was the one who had come to see me." "So, you had intercourse, is that correct?" the plaintiff's lawyer pressed. Ethan looked away. "We already had that kind of relationship." "Please answer my question directly," the lawyer said, his eyes locked on Ethan's face. "Did you or did you not have intercourse?" "Yes," Ethan gritted out. A wave of shock went through the courtroom. "At that time, you and Miss Rosalind Vance were already married. You had already held your wedding ceremony, yet you had intercourse with Miss Selena Ashworth," the plaintiff's lawyer continued. "Can I then assume that you have no moral compass?" Ethan could barely stay in his seat, his breathing ragged. He threw out a cold statement. "I had been drinking at the time, so I lost control." This twist stunned everyone present. Why did Ethan lose control? What was wrong with that drink? "Next, I would like to call the hotel waiter from that day to testify," the plaintiff's lawyer announced. Soon, a young man walked to the stand. Seeing him, Rosalind's face went white. "Your name is Mark Jennings, correct?" the plaintiff's lawyer asked after the man was sworn in. "Have you seen the defendant before?" Mark looked towards the defendant's dock. When he saw Ethan, he hesitated slightly. "I might have seen him, but I'm not sure." Then, his gaze fell on Rosalind and he paused. "I have seen this lady, Miss Vance." Chapter 13, she asked me to deliver that drink. Rosalind's face turned deathly pale. The plaintiff's lawyer asked, "Please describe in detail the circumstances under which you saw the defendant." Mark Jennings said, "I was on duty that day. This lady, Miss Vance, came to me and offered me a sum of money to do two things for her." "What two things?" the lawyer asked. "The first was to sabotage the hotel's surveillance system," Mark said. "I took the $100,000 she gave me and agreed. But when I went to do it, I ran into a colleague, so I just randomly flipped a switch. I wasn't sure if it worked, but when I came out, I had to pretend the job was done. The second thing was to deliver a drink to a room. I still remember the room number. It was the presidential suite on the top floor, reserved for Mr. Crawford. I knew it was Mr. Crawford's room and was a bit scared, so even with the money, I didn't want to do it. But then, she initiated intimacy with me, and in a moment of weakness, I did as she asked and delivered the tainted drink to Mr. Crawford's room." "Nonsense, you're slandering me." Rosalind completely lost her composure. She jumped up and pointed at Mark, shouting, "Did Serena Ashworth pay you to commit perjury?" Mark flinched and took out his phone. "I thought she was beautiful, so I secretly recorded a video. I've kept it all this time, watching it now, and then it wasn't until she became a famous star that I learned her name." The courtroom erupted in shock. Rosalind trembled, turning to Ethan, who was less than 2 feet away. "Ethan, believe me, this man was paid off. He's lying, and that video he has must be fake. Don't believe him, is it?" Ethan's eyes glinted with a cold light. "Then how do you explain the drink? If he knew nothing, how would he know what kind of drink was delivered?" Order, the judge called out. Does the defense have any evidence to present? By now, the defense attorney knew the case was lost, but he made a last-ditch effort. My clients are deeply in love. Here are the bank transfer records from when Miss Rosalind Vance helped the Crawford Corporation through its crisis. I ask the court to review them. After the records were presented, the prosecuting attorney spoke. Those records are forged. We have already requested the actual records from the bank. He continued, I would like to call 2 witnesses to the stand. Soon, a man and a woman took the stand. The prosecuting attorney introduced the man. This is the bank's data manager, who can verify the authenticity of the transfer records I hold. The man spoke. The evidence held by Mr. Quill is authentic. Upon investigation, the funds transferred to the Crawford Corporation at that time were from Miss Serena Ashworth's account. Hearing this, Ethan whipped his head around, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. The prosecuting attorney then turned to the female witness. Miss Woods, you were Mr. Ethan Crawford's secretary, but resigned 2 years ago. Why? The woman hesitated for a moment before speaking. Because I was being blackmailed by Miss Rosalind Vance. 5 years ago, my mother was sick, and I was desperate for money, so I worked as a hostess in a nightclub. Miss Vance found out and held it over me. She threatened to release the photos and tell my mother if I didn't obey her. I had no choice but to do everything she said. Chapter 14. She never wronged you. Please describe specifically what she had you do, the lawyer asked. Usually, she had me report on Mr. Crawford's schedule and which women he met, the woman said. There was another matter. When the Crawford Corporation was in trouble, Miss Serena Ashworth raised the funds and came to me, asking to see Mr. Crawford. Because of Miss Vance's prior instructions, I told her about it. She then had me tell Mr. Crawford that the money was earned through her own hard work. At these words, a buzzing filled Ethan's ears, and for a moment, he couldn't even steady himself. He turned his bloodshot eyes to Rosalind. My love, tell me this isn't true. Rosalind's face was a mask of panic. She shook her head repeatedly. They're all lying there deceiving you, Ethan. Don't believe them. I would never do something like that. But Ethan could read the truth in her frantic expression. He stared blankly away, his gaze falling on Serena in the plaintiff's seat. Just then, she looked over, her eyes as sharp as daggers. Ethan felt a lump of an unidentifiable emotion clog his throat. His chest heaved, and he wanted to call out to her. Suddenly, a torrent of memories flooded his mind. Years ago, he had fallen for her at first sight. Her kindness, her gentleness, the starlight in her eyes whenever she looked at him. Later, he confessed his feelings, and she, who happened to like him too, accepted. Back then, he was the heir to the Crawford Corporation, and she was the heiress of the Ashworth family. They were a perfect match, and they thought everything would be smooth sailing. Until his company ran into trouble, and she left him, but now it was clear she had never left him at all. During that difficult time, he was depressed. Whenever he asked her out, she was always unavailable. He thought she was disgusted with him, but now he understood. When she said she was busy running around for his family's company. No wonder she had asked him more than once if there was some misunderstanding between them. He had been gentle to her face but sneered at her in his heart. He had used her as a tool to satisfy his physical desires. For 2 years, they went from being passionate lovers to a clandestine affair. He humiliated her again and again, and the bright spark in her eyes when she looked at him gradually faded. She was struggling to pay for her sister's medical bills, but he thought she had abandoned all dignity for money. He looked down on her more and more, venting his frustrations on her until the feelings between them were worn down to nothing. Her sister was in the ICU, waiting for emergency treatment, and what did he do? After humiliating Serena, he cherished the manipulative Rosalind in the palm of his hand. No wonder he felt unwell after just a little bit of wine that day. No wonder the girl beneath him felt so thin. It was all Rosalind's scheme. Ethan's head snapped towards the venomous woman beside him. Why did you scheme against Selena? She never wronged you. Ethan, it has nothing to do with me. I don't know what you're talking about. At this point, all Rosalind could do was deny everything. She had no idea what she would face if she were convicted. Everyone, quiet, the judge ordered again. The prosecuting attorney presented more evidence. On the day of Miss Selena Ashworth's passing, she received a phone call and a text message from Miss Rosalind Vance. The content of the text message can be seen on the screen. As for the phone call, although we cannot play the original, Miss Selena Ashworth recorded it on her phone. Everyone, please listen. The lawyer then arranged for the recording to be played. Chapter 15. She knew it was over. It was clearly Rosalind's voice. Selena, now you see how filthy your sister is, don't you? The money for your treatment? She earned it all by sleeping around like this. Selena's ragged breathing could be heard. You're slandering my sister. I don't believe you, Rosalind laughed. Heth, whether I'm slandering her or not, why don't you go see for yourself? She's not with you right now, is she? That's because she's gone to sleep with Ethan Crawford again. Go to the Grand Ocean Hotel, room 2808. See for yourself and you'll know. The call ended there. Serena's eyes turned red. She had checked her sister's phone back then, but couldn't find this recording. Selena must have deleted it. It was the mysterious man who later had someone recover it from her phone. With this, the truth was almost completely revealed. It was Rosalind who had schemed to get Selena to the hotel, where she encountered Ethan and was then raped by him, as he mistook her for Serena. For a patient already on the brink of death, such an event was the final straw that broke her body. As for why she went to the Crawford villa, it was likely related to her conversation with Ethan at the time. But since the deceased was gone and Ethan had been in a state of confusion, no one knew the truth of that part. Finally, the prosecuting attorney said in a solemn tone, "Everyone, please watch the video of Miss Selena Ashworth leaving the hotel." She was still in the same hospital gown, but her body appeared even more fragile, as if she could collapse at any moment. The hotel was not far from the villa complex. She stumbled along the road until she finally fell on the pavement outside the Crawford villa, never to get up again. Watching her sister's final moments once more, Serena was already in tears. The judge's voice rang out, "Does the defense have any further evidence to provide?" Knowing that the outcome was sealed, the defense attorney shook his head. The judge then announced, "The prosecution and defense will now present their closing arguments." The prosecuting attorney rose first. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen, the death of Miss Selena Ashworth was clearly a premeditated murder. Miss Rosalind Vance is an adult with sound judgment and sexual experience. Knowing Miss Selena Ashworth's medical condition, she orchestrated a scenario for her to be raped. Therefore, she should have known the potential consequences of a terminally ill person engaging in sexual activity. To target a sister she grew up with in such a manner, and to destroy the relationship between her other sister and her boyfriend, demonstrates a truly malicious character. Furthermore, the meticulous planning in every step leading to Miss Selena Ashworth's death clearly shows her intent to cause her demise. Therefore, on behalf of my client, I accuse Miss Rosalind Vance of the premeditated murder of Miss Selena Ashworth. Additionally, I accuse Mr. Ethan Crawford of rape and involuntary manslaughter. His speech was delivered with powerful conviction. Combined with the videos, documents, and witness testimonies, the members of the public in attendance couldn't help but nod in agreement. All eyes fell on Rosalind and Ethan. This couple, the envy of the city for the past year, who stood before cameras in their fine clothes, accepting the adoration of all behind the scenes, they had relentlessly persecuted two sisters, engaging in filthy, despicable acts. Beneath their glamorous exteriors lay such rotten, dark hearts. At this moment, Rosalind's face was ashen. She knew it was over. Chapter 16. No way out. No matter the verdict today, Rosalind was ruined. All the goodwill she had built up in Ethan's mind had been shattered by the truth, turning her into a monster in his eyes. He would undoubtedly cast her aside, perhaps even persecute her relentlessly, just as he had done to Serena. Her career was also destroyed. For a star to be involved in such a scandal, she could already imagine her social media accounts being overrun by angry netizens. All her endorsement deals and film contracts would be terminated, and she would face massive penalties for damaging her public image. She sat on the chair, her body limp. Yes, she had wanted Selena to die. By generously offering up her own man, she had aimed for a permanent solution. If Selena died, Ethan would be dragged down with her, putting them in the same boat. At the same time, Serena was so close to her sister that, upon learning the truth, she would never reconcile with Ethan. So it seemed she had sacrificed her man once, but in return, she gained a once and for all solution. Why wouldn't she do it? But how had Serena found so much evidence? After the incident, Rosalind had used Ethan's name to ensure no company would hire Serena. At the same time, she had spread scantily clad photos of Serena all over the internet. Serena should have been jobless, broke, and homeless, and what good was her beauty then? With those photos out there, even if she worked as a hostess, no wealthy man would ever look at her, let alone give her money. So, how did she make a comeback? How? As Rosalind seethed with anger and fear, the lawyer Ethan had hired stood up to deliver his closing argument. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my client, Miss Rosalind Vance, I admit to the charges." At these words, Rosalind shot to her feet. "What do you mean? When did I admit to anything?" Her face was contorted with rage, a far cry from the elegant demeanor she usually displayed for the cameras. "Silence," the judge frowned. "Defendant, it is not your time to speak." The defense attorney continued, "At the same time, on behalf of my client, Mr. Ethan Crawford, I deny all charges. Furthermore, I will be representing Mr. Crawford in a lawsuit against Miss Rosalind Vance for scheming against my client a year and a half ago, causing him to engage in sexual relations with another person while not in a clear state of mind." A loud ringing filled Rosalind's ears. By now, how could she not understand that her lawyer and Ethan had turned against her? Not only were they not helping her clear her name, but they were also turning around to bite her. But the lawyer in the room was Ethan's man, and in her current state, no one would help her. She truly had no way out. In the plaintiff's seat, Serena heard the lawyer's words and a cold smile touched her lips. Heh, dogs eating dogs? Unfortunately, she also knew that this evidence wouldn't be enough to put Ethan away for good. After all, Rosalind had orchestrated most of it, and Ethan had been a passive participant. But what did it matter if he was passive? He was still an accomplice in Selena's death. Hatred filled Serena's eyes. The court couldn't punish this man, so she would find another way to get her revenge. One day, she would make him kneel before Selena's grave and repent. Chapter 17. Everything went smoothly. I'm very happy that day. Just as Rosalind had predicted, the topic exploded on social media. It seemed to be the first time the platform had crashed due to a court case rather than a celebrity marriage announcement. Rosalind's sentence was delivered that same day, although she was the mastermind behind the premeditated murder. Because Selena had gone to the hotel of her own volition, even though Rosalind had instigated it, this factor was taken into account. Rosalind was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Hearing this, Serena's lips curled into a faint smile. A death sentence would have been too easy for this woman. Rosalind was 25 now. When she got out of prison, she would be 50. What could she possibly do then? And after being locked away for so many years, cut off from the world, she probably wouldn't even know how to use a smartphone when she got out. As for Ethan, because there was no direct evidence of him harming Selena, and because the sexual encounter had occurred while he was not of sound mind, he was acquitted. However, that very day, Ethan filed another lawsuit against Rosalind. Serena walked out of the courthouse and took a deep breath of fresh air. She didn't go home. Instead, she went straight to Selena's grave. The girl on the tombstone had a smile as sweet as she remembered. Serena placed the flowers down, her eyes red. "Selena, I've come to see you. I haven't been here for over a year because I was too ashamed to face you. Now that we've gotten our revenge, you can rest in peace. It's just that animal, Ethan. For now, I haven't been able to make him face prison, but I will work hard. Just as I was able to save the Crawford Corporation back then, I can also destroy it now. Selena, I haven't told you yet, but you have a little nephew. He's a very cute little boy. He's only 6 months old and can't even say mama yet, but he can already recognize people. He loves to laugh, this bubbly little giggle, and everyone adores him. When he's a little older, I'll bring him here to see you. Selena, don't worry about me. You can rest now." By the time Serena left Selena's grave, the sky had grown dark. She returned to the villa. The area around it, even after more than a year, remained undeveloped. The villa still stood alone in a desolate landscape, looking somewhat isolated from the world. Serena used her fingerprint to unlock the door. The housekeeper saw her and smiled. "Miss, would you like to have dinner?" Serena nodded and casually asked, "Has Sir eaten?" "I just took his meal in," the housekeeper said, heading to the kitchen. Serena went to her room to change, then checked on the baby. Seeing him sleeping soundly, she went back to the dining room to eat. She ate rather quickly, perhaps because she was so happy about today's events and was eager to share the news with someone. Although the man still hadn't told her his name, she wanted to talk to him. Over the past year and a half, he had become her sole pillar of support. The bedroom door was closed. Serena knocked gently. A low voice came from inside, "Come in." Serena pushed the door open. It was still pitch black, but she was used to it and to the faint, pleasant scent of the man in the room. "Sir, I'm back," she said, approaching him. "Everything went smoothly, and I'm very happy. It's just a shame that while Rosalind was sentenced to 25 years, Ethan was acquitted." Chapter 18. Leaving in 2 months, the man said flatly, "So what outcome did you hope for?" Serena sighed. "Actually, I had pretty much guessed this would be the result, but I'm still a little upset. But it doesn't matter. There's still a long road ahead. Who knows what the future holds?" The man fell silent. He walked to the bedside, looked at the thick curtains, and said in a toneless voice, "They have been brought to justice. I have fulfilled my promise to you." Serena's breath caught. She instantly understood. "Sir, you mean, the baby can be weaned in 2 months, right?" The man said, "After 6 months, the benefits of breast milk diminish significantly, so you only need to nurse him for another 2 months." "Sir?" Serena's eyes suddenly turned red. She knew this day would come sooner or later. The day she signed the agreement, it was already decided. She would give birth to a child, but couldn't be with him for his entire life. However, she had secretly held onto a sliver of hope that the man might change his mind and let them raise the baby together. But now it was clear that hope was dashed. "I will arrange a good job for you, but in 2 months," the man suddenly stopped speaking. Then, Serena heard a heavy thud. Startled, she quickly turned around. The room was pitch black, but she seemed to have grown accustomed to the darkness and accurately made her way to the man's side. "Sir, what's wrong?" Her voice trembled with a tension she hadn't realized was there. The man seemed to be roused by her words. He reached out and grabbed her arm. "Don't turn on the light. Call the doctor." "Okay, I'll go get the doctor right now," Serena said, turning and striding out. Outside, the housekeeper saw her anxious expression and asked, "Miss, what's wrong?" "Sir fainted," Serena replied. Just then, the baby in the nursery started crying. The housekeeper said, "The young master is probably hungry. Miss, you go check on him. I'll call the doctor." Serena nodded and went to pick up the baby. The little one seemed to smell his mother. When Serena picked him up, his eyes were still squinted, but he immediately stopped crying. Serena cradled him in her arms and cooed, "Leo, are you hungry? Mama will feed you." With that, she lifted her shirt. The baby began to nurse, instantly content. Meanwhile, the housekeeper had already called the doctor and went to check on the man. He was still lying on the carpet, but thankfully, the house had underfloor heating. Even though it was winter, he wouldn't catch a cold. Before long, the doctor arrived. By then, Serena had finished feeding the baby and was waiting anxiously in the room, holding him. "Miss, could you and the baby step out for a moment? I need to examine, sir," the doctor said calmly. Serena nodded, but before she left, she asked, "He suddenly fainted. Is it serious?" "It's nothing," the doctor said, then closed the door. Serena had no choice. Even though they had shared a bed for over a year, she didn't even know the man's name, what he looked like, or who he was. She sighed, carried the baby to the nursery, placed him on a soft blanket, and played with him with a toy. The baby loved to laugh. Just as Serena had told Selena, a little bit of teasing was enough to make his eyes crinkle with joy. Serena thought about what the man had said that she had to leave in 2 months. Her heart ached as if it were being torn apart. Chapter 19. "You should at least come to see him off," she kissed her son, her voice low. "Leo, will you forget Mama?" Of course, a baby couldn't understand such words. He just felt the tickle of Serena's kiss on his cheek, a touch he enjoyed, so he giggled again. Serena's eyes grew red, but she forced herself to smile. She looked at her son's chubby little face and asked, "Leo, you think Daddy will be okay, right?" The little one didn't understand, just played with the toy in his hand. "I hope he's all right," Serena said again. Outside, the housekeeper passed by the nursery and happened to hear these words. Her eyes suddenly reddened. She had watched Sir go through so much over the years. It was rare for him to have a woman by his side. Although this woman seemed to have a bad reputation outside, she had seen with her own eyes that Serena was a good woman, kind-hearted, and took meticulous care of the baby. Now, even knowing that Sir was going to send her away, she was still worried about his health, but she couldn't persuade Sir. All she could do was sigh. In the next room, the doctor lit a dim yellow lamp in a corner, just bright enough to see the man's veins, and drew 2 vials of blood. He quickly turned off the lamp and went out to run the tests. Soon, he returned to the bedroom, his voice flat. "It's getting worse." The man on the bed didn't seem surprised. He just asked, "How much time do I have left?" 6 months at most, the doctor said calmly. "But it's not all bad. You have a son now, so your family line will continue." The man grunted. "All right, I understand. You can go now." "Still not willing to go for treatment?" the doctor asked. "Even if I go, the result will be the same, won't it?" The man's tone was calm, as if discussing something trivial. "Lying here is just waiting to die, isn't it?" The doctor was clearly close to him, speaking bluntly. "Going out there is also just waiting to die, isn't it?" the man retorted. "What's the difference?" Fine, I won't try to persuade you," the doctor said helplessly. "I was just saying, what if a miracle happens? We've known each other for over 20 years. I'm 28 now, long past the age of hoping for miracles," the man said flatly. "If there were miracles, my father back then, so what's your plan?" The doctor changed the subject. "For that woman and your son? I'll hire the best tutors to raise my son. As for her," the man paused for a moment, "I'll ensure she's financially secure for the rest of her life." "I could tell just now, she seems to care about you," the doctor said, patting the man's shoulder. "You only have half a year left. Why not try having a relationship?" The man scoffed, then said, "That doesn't sound like you. All these years with this disease, have you ever enjoyed a single day of your life?" The doctor said, frustrated. "You're 28, not 88. Why not let loose at the end of your life?" "I'm used to it," the man said, seemingly unconcerned. "Time no longer has any meaning or difference for me." Fine, you've seen through the mortal world." The doctor stood up to leave. "If you ever feel noticeably unwell, remember to call me. We've known each other for so many years, I should at least come to see you off." "All right," the man replied. The doctor opened the door and left. Chapter 20, None have lived past 30 outside. When Serena heard the doctor coming out, she hurried over. "Doctor, how is he?" "He's fine. He won't die just yet," the doctor said, then hesitated. Serena sensed something was wrong. She had always thought the man kept the curtains drawn because he didn't want her to see his face. But later, after she had the baby and moved in, she noticed that he never went out during the day, staying either in the bedroom or the study. She knew he possessed immense wealth. She occasionally heard him mention business news, seemingly aware of everything happening outside. Sometimes, she heard him on work calls, but he was always in the dark. Since the baby was born, they had shared a bed, but he hadn't touched her. She was supposed to stay in a separate room, but the housekeeper had asked her to take care of Sir in his room. She even said she would feel more at ease if Serena was in the room. Now, the man had suddenly fainted for no reason, and the doctor had just checked the blood test results in a well-lit area outside. All of this confirmed one thing for Serena. The reason the man stayed in the darkness was that he couldn't be exposed to light. He must have some rare disease at this moment. The doctor's hesitation confirmed her suspicions. Seeing that he wouldn't speak, perhaps because the housekeeper was present, an idea struck her. "Mrs. Peterson, could you hold the baby for a moment? I just remembered I left a package in the delivery box by the door." The housekeeper, unsuspecting, went to the nursery to soothe the baby. Serena then said to the doctor, "Let me walk you out." At the door, Serena got straight to the point. "Doctor, please tell me the truth. Does he have a serious illness?" The doctor saw the genuine concern in her eyes, which she couldn't fake. He stopped and asked, "He's about to send you away. If he really is sick, you should be happy. At least no one will take your child away." "He is Leo's father," Serena said with a serious expression. "Yes, I'm sad that he wants to separate me from my son, but he is still Leo's father. I want Leo to grow up in a complete family. Even if I can't always be with him, I want his parents to be alive and well." The doctor's expression shifted, and he finally sighed. "I'm afraid your wish won't come true." "What do you mean?" Serena's heart sank with a bad premonition. "He has a very rare genetic disease. His father developed it shortly after he was born," the doctor explained. "This disease prevents him from being exposed to light. If he is, his skin will ulcerate. Moreover, it's incurable. Even with constant avoidance of light, Historical cases show that no one with this disease has ever lived past 30. Serena's eyes widened in shock, her heart feeling as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand. Her lips trembled. So now he probably only has about 6 months left, the doctor shook his head. I'm his friend, but I can't persuade him. I want him to go to a medical facility for treatment, but he says no one in the world has ever been cured, and going would just be torture. In short, the guy is stubborn. Once he's made up his mind, nothing we say will work. Serena's heart began to race. So if he goes for treatment, is there a glimmer of hope? Chapter 21, The Secret of the Ring, Basically None, the doctor shrugged. That's just how this disease is. But hey, just because there's no historical precedent doesn't mean it's impossible for him. What if a miracle really happens? Then I'll try to convince him, Serena said, taking a deep breath. The doctor looked at her with new respect and nodded. You can try. By the way, we saved Leo's umbilical cord blood when he was born. Can that be used to treat him? Serena asked. We've tried. It didn't work, the doctor sighed. By the way, do you know why he chose you in the first place? Serena was completely in the dark about this. Because of your blood type, the doctor explained. Your mother's ring actually represents your family's bloodline. He had been searching for it all along, but he didn't know that your mother had changed her name when she married your father. With his condition, having a child with an ordinary woman would also be problematic. His parents were an example. So, it had to be you. Serena was completely stunned. So, the secret had nothing to do with the ring itself? Correct. The ring was just a symbol of a bloodline identity, the doctor said. In the future, he will probably pass the ring down to your son. By the way, don't worry, your son doesn't have his disease. I confirmed it at birth. Any children you have together won't have this disease. Serena let out a sigh of relief, but the thought of the doctor's words that the man had less than 6 months to live weighed heavily on her heart. She was somewhat distracted when she returned to her room. The housekeeper was bathing the baby, saying the little one had made a mess. Serena went over to help, washing her son clean and applying diaper cream. Soon, he was a sweet-smelling baby again. The man's illness wasn't contagious, so after dressing the baby, Serena carried him to the man's bedroom. He was already up, leaning against the headboard, seemingly listening to something with his headphones. Hearing Serena enter, he asked flatly, "Is something wrong?" Serena walked over with their son, her voice cheerful. "Leo, let's go, let Daddy hold you, okay?" She approached and placed their son in the man's arms. Suddenly, a soft, warm little body was in his embrace. The man held him, trying to see his son's face, but even though he was used to the dark, he could only make out a blurry outline. However, the little one seemed to recognize his scent and giggled at him. A warmth spread through the man's chest, a soft spot in his heart touched for a moment. "Leo," he called his name and kissed the baby's tender cheek. The little one laughed, his tiny hand reaching for the man's chin. The fresh stubble wasn't too prickly, and the baby, curious, rubbed his hand against it. Though Serena couldn't see clearly, the moment brought a sense of peace to her heart. But she didn't know how the man's health was, and worried that holding the baby for too long would tire him. So she asked, "Sir, would you like to rest a bit?" "I'm fine," the man said, continuing to play with his son. However, perhaps because the room was too dark, the baby started to fuss after a while, his little mouth pouting as if he was about to cry. Seeing this, Serena quickly took him back. "Does baby want his toys? Mama will take you to get your toys, okay?" Chapter 22, Happiness is you having me. The room fell silent. The man looked down at his empty arms, a wave of sadness washing over him. Outside, the baby played for a while longer before growing tired and falling asleep in Serena's arms. She gently placed him in his crib, kissed his little cheek, and then left the room. The man was a bit surprised. Usually, Serena didn't come to the bedroom this early. Today, it seemed she was deliberately keeping him company. He felt the bed dip beside him, followed by the familiar scent of a woman. Serena didn't know how to persuade the man next to her. In truth, she knew very little about him. Though they had known each other for over a year and had been intimate many times, they had never truly connected on an emotional level. She decided to start with a simple conversation. "I went to my sister's grave today," Serena said. "She knows I've avenged her. She can finally rest in peace." The man grunted in acknowledgement but said nothing more. "Oh, I passed by a hot pot restaurant today and saw a really long line outside," Serena added. As she said it, she felt like she was just making awkward small talk. She had never spoken to him like this before. It seemed they had never really just chatted. "You're very talkative today." As expected, the man sensed something. He asked why. Serena's breath hitched. She quickly replied in a light tone, "Because I finally got revenge for my sister, so I feel happy." She then turned to him. "Is there anything you want to talk about?" After a few seconds, the man said flatly, "No." Serena sighed inwardly. She was terrible at starting conversations. She shifted slightly and reached out. "Were you listening to music just now? Can I listen?" But instead of the earphone cord, her hand grasped the man's. His palm was dry and warm, much larger than hers. They both seemed to freeze for a moment. Then, Serena let go, laughing awkwardly. "Sorry, I couldn't see." They had done far more intimate things, yet this simple hand-holding strangely made her ears burn. "Did Dr. Shaw say something to you?" the man suddenly asked. Serena stiffened, then quickly denied it. "No, he just said I should take good care of you and keep your spirits up." "Meddlesome," the man said flatly, seemingly no longer suspicious. Serena breathed a sigh of relief. An idea came to her and she stood up. "I heard a really nice song the other day. Let me go get my phone." She got off the bed and went outside. Grabbing her phone and plugging in the earphones, Serena played a song and returned to the bedside. She sat next to the man and offered him one of the earbuds. "Want to listen?" He took it and placed it in his ear. Soft music filled the air, followed by a magnetic male voice singing. "This story began with one person. I carefully wrote it into us. In this destiny, no one turned away. You started to revise the script, adding to my role. This life was originally one person. You insisted on making it us. All our futures we promised to wait for together. The vows of youth took root, our wishes deeper than anyone's. Through the door, lights on, a family. Hand in hand, so gentle, walking side by side for eternity. You looked at me with deep affection and said, 'Happiness is you having me?'" Chapter 23. "Actually, I can't bear to leave you either." The room was quiet. They sat side by side at the head of the bed, neither speaking, just listening to the music peacefully. They sat for an unknown amount of time until the playlist had cycled through and the first song started again. Serena came back to her senses and asked him, "Is it good?" But next to her, she heard the man's steady, long breaths. He had fallen asleep. It was obvious his stamina was declining. Over the past 6 months, she'd had many chances to notice, but her focus had been on their son, so she had overlooked it. Now, a heavy sadness washed over Serena. In her darkest moments, when she was in despair and consumed by hatred, he was the one who gave her the strength to stand up again. Even though it was just a transaction, people are not made of stone. These 400+ days and nights had not passed without leaving a mark on her life. "Sir," she called softly. Confirming he was truly asleep, she carefully helped him lie down. It was probably only around 10 o'clock. Serena went to the bathroom, then checked on the baby. The housekeeper said he was still sleeping soundly, so she returned to the bedroom. She lay down, fully clothed, and pulled the covers over herself, but she couldn't sleep. She moved closer to the man beside her and reached out to hold his hand. An indescribable feeling welled up inside her. This man, her baby's father, really only had 6 months left to live. Serena had lost her mother and father, then her sister. Now, was she going to lose this man whose name she didn't even know? She had been through too much separation and loss. She really didn't want to see another person close to her pass away. She squeezed the man's hand slightly, her voice very low. "I still don't know your name. I don't even know what you look like." The room was silent. No one answered her. "Actually, I was quite scared of you at first, but later, I realized you're a good person. Even though we only had a deal, and now that it's over, we're technically not related, I still feel like your family." "You probably don't have any family either, right? At least I haven't seen anyone in the past 6 months. Do you get lonely? When you're alone, do you feel sad? You told me to leave in 2 months. Well, for these few short days, let me keep you company." In reality, the man had woken up when Serena helped him lie down. He was still groggy, but he could hear what she was saying. He didn't move or respond, just waited quietly, wanting to hear what else she had to say. "I'm very lonely too. You don't know, I only had my sister. After she was gone, I had no purpose other than revenge. Now, my revenge is mostly complete. Even though Ethan is still alive, he won't be happy. A selfish and self-centered person like him will never be happy. I thought I had no one left to care about, but then our baby was born. I can't bear to part with him. I want to watch him grow up, teach him to read, and even see him get married and have children someday. I want to watch him grow up with you." At this point, Serena couldn't continue, letting out a soft sigh. "Actually, I can't bear to leave you either." Beside her, the man's breathing hitched for a moment. Chapter 24. The scumbag comes calling that night. Serena talked for a long time until she, too, unknowingly fell asleep. But she never let go of the man's hand. The next morning, when Serena woke up, she found herself in the man's arms. She was hugging his waist, her arm resting on his shoulder, and her leg was even draped over his. She was startled. It had been a long time since they had slept like this. Realizing the situation, Serena quickly pulled away, afraid she might be hurting him. Her movement woke him. He, too, woke up and released the arm that was around her waist. "Good morning," she said, her voice a little lazy, like a cat sunbathing on a balcony. "Good morning," the man replied, a rare response. "I'm going to check on the baby," Serena said, getting up and heading to the next room. The baby was already awake. He had just had some solid food and was playing happily. When he saw Serena, his eyes lit up, and he started to wriggle, wanting to be picked up. Serena knew he wanted to nurse again. She fed him first, then went to the kitchen. "Miss, is Sir awake?" the housekeeper asked. "He is," Serena said. Seeing the housekeeper about to take him his breakfast, she offered, "I'll take it." "Aren't you going to eat first, miss?" the housekeeper asked. "It's fine, I'm not very hungry," Serena said, pushing the meal cart to the man's study. The study was completely dark. He was sitting at his desk, talking on the phone with his headphones on. Serena had studied some English and could understand a few words, but she couldn't make out what he was saying. She placed the cart down, took out the food item by item, and stood by, waiting for him to finish his call. The man finally realized she was the one who had come in. He hung up and asked, "What is it?" "Nothing." Serena handed him the bowl and chopsticks. "The baby just learned to crawl. After you eat, shall we go watch him together?" "All right," the man agreed and began to eat in silence. After a few bites, he asked, "Have you eaten?" "I'm about to," Serena smiled. "Let's have a race and see who finishes first." With that, she turned and hurried away. In the dark study, a faint smile appeared on the man's lips. In the following days, Serena's time was almost entirely devoted to the baby and the man. She only later found out that Ethan had sued Rosalind, and Rosalind had ended up paying millions in emotional damages in addition to a 3-year prison sentence. Over the month, she noticed that the man gradually started responding more when she talked to him. Later, he would even chat with her occasionally. She even found a common topic between them: work. She had decided to go back to work after the baby was weaned, so she asked him some questions about the market. The man was clearly very knowledgeable. When it came to professional matters, he spoke eloquently, teaching her many things from a higher perspective. Gradually, she also got used to eating in the dark. Sometimes, after feeding the baby, she would push the meal cart to his study and eat with him in the dark, discussing work as they ate. One day, Serena had just put the baby down for a nap and was about to go to the man's study when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello," a familiar yet distant male voice came from the other end. "Serena, it's me." Chapter 25. If you die right now, I'll forgive you. It took Serena a few seconds to recognize Ethan's voice. Her expression instantly turned cold. "Are you calling me to repent at my sister's grave?" "Serena, I want to talk to you." Ethan's voice was gentle. "I haven't seen you in so long. There's so much I want to say to you." "Didn't we just see each other in court a while ago?" Serena sneered. "I don't think there's anything left for us to talk about." "Serena, I'm sorry." Ethan's voice was low. "For what happened back then, for everything, I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I'm willing to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Can you give me a chance? Let's meet." "Ethan Crawford, my sister is gone. Do you think your half-hearted apology can bring her back to life?" Serena's chest heaved, her long, calm emotions once again in turmoil. "Sorry, but that's impossible. I only wish for you to go to hell if you die right now. Then I'll forgive you." With that, she hung up the phone. Still fuming, Serena turned and saw the closed door of the room. The man inside had less than 5 months to live. He was so brilliant and upright, yet he wouldn't live past 30. But that scumbag Ethan was living just fine in this world. Serena didn't go to the man's room. Instead, she went online to continue her research. Regardless of whether the man would separate her from her baby, she needed to go to work soon. The company she was targeting was a direct competitor of the Crawford Corporation. Over the years, that company had grown larger, while the Crawford Corporation, though its performance was also improving, had a fatal weakness that she knew of. The money she had given Ethan back then had become a weapon that led to the death of her parents and sister. If she hadn't helped the Crawford Corporation back then, perhaps there would have been a way to save her family's company when it ran into trouble. And if the Crawford Corporation had collapsed, with a money-grubbing woman like Rosalind, how could she have ever gotten together with Ethan? Then her sister wouldn't have died for several days. Serena stayed at home, studying information, practically splitting her time into several pieces. One day, the weather was exceptionally good, sunny with a gentle breeze. So, the housekeeper took the baby out to the lawn to sunbathe. Serena fed the baby some solid food first, then went back inside to get a toy for him. She heard the phone in the study ringing, and after it went unanswered for a long time, a sense of urgency gripped her. She pushed the door open and went in. In the room, the man seemed to have fallen asleep in his chair. The phone was on the desk in front of him, ringing over and over. An indescribable feeling washed over Serena. In the end, she silenced the phone. She hesitated, wondering if she should help him to the bedroom to sleep. Suddenly, the floor beneath her began to shake. Serena was startled. Before she could process it, another violent tremor hit. Several books on the bookshelf were shaken loose and fell to the floor. An earthquake. Her heart pounded in alarm. She rushed to help the man in the chair. "Sir, it's an earthquake, we have to run," Serena shouted. The man didn't seem to be awake. He didn't move. Serena's heart tightened. She suddenly realized the chair had wheels. She quickly took off her cardigan, draped it over the man's head to block the light, and pushed the chair out of the room. The ground was still shaking. Behind them, books in the study were crashing down. Serena pushed the man to a safe area next to the sofa, pulled him out of the chair and into the triangle of safety, and then crouched down. There was no time to get him out of the villa, and with the steps outside, she couldn't get him out safely anyway. As for the baby, he and the housekeeper were on the lawn outside, with no tall buildings around, so they were the safest. The moment she crouched down, the ground shook violently again. Serena held the man tightly, pressing his head into her chest. Chapter 26. Suddenly, he couldn't bear to let her go. His nose filled with the familiar scent of the woman. The man, in a daze, slowly woke up and opened his eyes. He could vaguely hear things crashing down around him. The ground was still trembling. Finally, everything went quiet. The woman in front of him slowly let him go, her voice filled with the relief of having survived. "It's over. The earthquake should be over." The man looked up. The light here was brighter than in the absolute darkness of his room. He looked at her through the tiny holes of her black cardigan and saw her looking down at him, her eyes filled with concern. "Sir, are you okay? Are you awake?" He suddenly wanted to hold her. "I'm fine," he finally replied after a few seconds. "Where are Leo and Mrs. Peterson?" They were playing on the lawn outside. "They should be fine," Serena said, getting up and helping him to his feet. "I'll go check on them," the man grunted, but as Serena turned to leave, he suddenly grabbed her hand. "Be careful, there might be aftershocks." Serena's face paled slightly. She quickly held him down. "Then don't go anywhere. Just wait here for me, I'll be right back." With that, she hurried outside. The man watched her retreating back, a complex mix of emotions welling up in his eyes. She could have left, but she chose to save him. When he was very young, his mother, unable to bear living in darkness with his father year after year, chose to divorce. Not 2 years later, his father passed away. After that, he grew up under his grandfather's care and took over the company. When he was 22, his grandfather brought home a girl, saying they had an arranged marriage and should get married. He had no particular requirements for a woman. Since giving him a grandson was his grandfather's only wish, he agreed and prepared to marry her. But on the eve of the wedding, he was diagnosed with the same disease his father had. He told the girl about it. The girl, whose eyes had once been full of love for him, suddenly fell silent. Later, she left without a word. But he had never felt any romantic love for her, so he wasn't particularly heartbroken. His grandfather, however, couldn't accept it. He hadn't found the heir to the ring, and his only grandson had an incurable disease. A couple of years later, his grandfather also passed away, leaving him all alone. He became completely unable to face the light and could only live in perpetual darkness. Before finding Serena, he had almost given up. The doctors said he had 2 years left at most, and the person who could have a child with him was nowhere to be found. Until she burst into his life, he didn't care about her past because his own body was already on the verge of collapse. But at this moment, his heart felt as if it were wrapped in something warm. He had always thought he was the one who would be abandoned, but when danger struck, even though there was nothing binding them, she hadn't left. During the earthquake, she held him tightly in her arms, never letting go for a second. A soft sigh escaped the man in the room. What a pity. He was dying. He could give her nothing, not even a simple response. Later that day, they learned from the news that the epicenter of the earthquake was 200 kilometers from a city. That evening, after putting the baby to sleep, Serena returned to the bedroom. The man was sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for her. "I have something to tell you," he said. Chapter 27, "No, I don't regret it, okay?" Serena said. "What is it?" "Next month, after the baby is weaned, you will leave," the man said. "Then, 4 months later, you will come back." Serena's breath caught in her throat. He had less than 5 months to live. So he wanted her to be away during the time he passed, and he was telling her to come back, which meant he no longer intended to separate her from their baby. Her heart felt as if it were being squeezed tightly. Some farewells were sudden and tragic, while others were a slow, drawn-out despair. "All right," Serena agreed. He picked up his headphones and handed one to her. "Didn't you always want to listen to the music on my phone?" Serena took it and was surprised to find that he was listening to the very first song she had played for him. Neither of them spoke. There was no physical contact, only a single headphone cord connecting them. That night, Serena didn't even remember how she fell asleep. Only in a hazy dream did she feel someone whisper in her ear, "I wish I had met you sooner." She wanted to say something in reply, but sleep ultimately won. Time flowed like water. Another month passed. Serena breastfed the baby one last time, tears finally streaming down her face. She quickly turned away and said softly, "Leo, you'll be a big boy when you grow up. While Mama is away, take good care of Daddy." The little one didn't understand, just smiled sweetly at Serena. By the bedroom door stood the suitcase Serena had packed in advance. She pushed open the door. The room was as dark as ever. The darkness that had once terrified and repulsed her now filled her with a sense of reluctance to leave. The man stood by the window. Sensing her arrival, he didn't move. Serena quietly looked at his blurry silhouette, reached out, and hugged him from behind. His body stiffened for a moment, then he said calmly, "I won't see you off." "I never knew your name," she said, her voice trembling as she looked at his dark outline. "Can you tell me?" "There's no need," he replied, his tone so light it seemed it could drift away with the wind. Serena could no longer hold back. She moved to face him, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to go. Please let me stay with you." By now, the man had probably figured it out. She must have known everything. He remained silent, simply prying her fingers from his body. But she held on with a fierce determination, hugging him tightly and kissing him. He tried to pull away. "Serena Ashworth, that's enough, our deal is over. You must leave," but his words were silenced by her lips. He tasted her tears, salty, yet he found himself unable to refuse. As he entered her, his eyes were filled with an uncontrollable sorrow. "You know everything, so why do this? Did you know? For the past 1.5 years, even though it was always dark in here, you were the only light in my despair," Serena said, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck. "Serena Ashworth, you will regret this." "No, I don't regret it." She turned to look at his blurry silhouette, their fingers intertwined. "I have never been more clear-headed than I am today." Hearing her words, he shuddered and pulled her into his embrace. Chapter 28, Our Baby in the End. Serena didn't leave. She couldn't leave. Another 2 weeks passed. They were like a couple in the throes of first love, together every moment. The man said the baby wouldn't disturb his rest, so during nap times, the 3 of them slept together. In the mornings, Serena would take their son for a walk outside. When she returned, she would tell the man what new things the baby had learned that day. Until one morning, Serena suddenly felt a bit nauseous. She looked at the calendar and realized her period was a week late. There were still unused pregnancy tests in the house. She quickly went to the bathroom to test, and her breath caught. The two distinct lines clearly indicated she was pregnant. In the study, the man seemed to be arranging his affairs. He began instructing his trusted assistant, telling them to cooperate with Serena's work in the future and to fully support her when she started her job. Serena held the pregnancy test, her breath tight, a mix of joy and sorrow filling her heart. She waited until the man finished his call before going to him. She took his hand and looked at him. "For our son, and for our unborn baby, can you just try once? Believe in a miracle just once?" The man froze, then caught her words. "Unborn baby? Yes." Serena placed the pregnancy test in his palm. "I'm pregnant. That day, after that time, I'm having another baby." The man's hand tightened around the test, his fingertips trembling. "I'm begging you, please." Serena's eyes were red. "I can't be without a husband, and our babies can't be without a father." A long silence filled the room. Finally, the man reached out and pulled Serena into his arms. He left early one morning, 3 days later. Serena was still asleep, and because he moved so quietly, she was completely unaware. When she woke up, there was only a note on the pillow. "My little Yue, I've gone to find a miracle. Take care of yourself and the babies. Don't wait for me." Serena stared at the note, tears falling once again. She knew why he hadn't said goodbye. They were facing what could very well be a final farewell. But with a baby on the way and a son less than a year old in her arms, Serena had no right to cry. She officially took charge of the company. Coincidentally, the Sterling Group, which the man controlled, was a direct competitor of the Crawford Corporation. After that, life became remarkably simple. She went to work every day, dealing with challenging situations she had never faced before. Fortunately, the man's special assistant was always by her side, helping her and teaching her everything he knew. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. In 3 years, the Sterling Group had firmly established itself as the industry leader, while the Crawford Corporation, under pressure from Sterling, was in steady decline. In 3 years, Serena had also visited Rosalind in prison. Rosalind was now gaunt and hollow-eyed, a shadow of her former self. In 3 years, Serena had become a mother to 2 children. Her older son, Leo, was in his 2nd year of preschool, while her younger daughter, Mia, had just started. This day, after work, she went to the preschool to pick them up as usual. From a distance, she saw Leo holding Mia's hand, running towards her. Serena's eyes suddenly reddened. It had been 3 years since he left, with no word. Perhaps, at some point, he had already left this world for good. It was a pity he had never held Mia, never known what his children looked like as they grew. Chapter 29. "My little Yue, I found the miracle taking her 2 children by the hand." Serena smiled. "Leo, Mia, how was your day at preschool?" "Mommy, I was very angry today," Mia pouted, her face full of accusation. "There was a very mean kid. What happened?" Serena quickly knelt down and asked gently. Mia stuck out her lip. "That bad classmate said I don't have a daddy, but daddy just went to Antarctica to be a scientist and feed the penguins. When the baby penguins grow up, daddy will come back." Serena's breath caught in her throat, but she still managed a gentle smile. "That's right. After daddy finishes feeding the penguins, he'll come back." She lifted Mia into her arms and, holding Leo's hand, got into the car. As they passed a snack shop, the 2 little ones clamored for the shop's colorful sweet dumplings. So, Serena had the driver stop the car. She took the 2 children to buy a box each before heading home. The villa still stood alone in the desolate area. Serena had later learned that the man had bought all the surrounding land. Since he didn't develop it, it remained barren. The 2 little ones ran into the villa. Serena followed, smiling. "Mia, be careful not to fall. Leo, hold on to Mia. Don't run so fast." She opened the villa door. As she changed her shoes, Serena felt that something was off. She walked into the bedroom to change her clothes as usual, but the moment she pushed the door open, she froze. The bedroom curtains were open, and bright sunlight streamed in, dancing in the room. A tall, well-built man stood by the window, his back to her, his figure strangely familiar. Serena's heart began to race. She walked towards him, step by step. He slowly turned around. A handsome, unfamiliar face with sharp, defined features was now looking at her with deep eyes. Serena stared at him, tilting her head up. As he approached, she caught the familiar scent she hadn't smelled in 3 years. He stood before her, looked down, and his voice, low and magnetic, was just as she remembered. "My little Yue, I found the miracle." Tears instantly welled up in Serena's eyes. The next second, she was pulled into a tight embrace. He spoke into her hair. "By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Julian Sterling." Serene, peaceful, she looked up at him through her tears. "I've waited for you for 3 years." He leaned down to kiss the tears from her cheeks. "I'm sorry, my little Yue, I will never leave again." Just as she was about to respond, 2 sets of footsteps approached. Leo and Mia ran to the doorway and saw a strange man hugging their mother. Instantly, the 2 little ones put their hands on their hips and said fiercely, "Who are you?" "Let go of my mommy. This is trespassing, I'll call the police." Serena finally snapped back to reality and pulled away from Julian's embrace. She knelt down, hugged her 2 children and said, "Leo, Mia, this is your daddy." Mia's eyes widened as she studied the man. Leo, however, looked at the tears on Serena's cheeks and said doubtfully, "Mommy, then why are you crying? Did he bully you?" "No, Mommy's not crying, Mommy's happy." Serena forced a smile. "Because Daddy is back, Mommy is happy, so happy that I'm crying." Hearing this, Leo pondered for a moment while Mia burst into tears. Serena quickly asked, "Mia, what's wrong?" The little girl sobbed, "Daddy came back from feeding the penguins in Antarctica. Mia is so happy that I'm crying." Chapter 30. A happy ending. Julian looked at his son and daughter, his heart melting as if by an invisible force. He knelt down, trying to make his voice as gentle and friendly as possible. "Leo, Mia, can Daddy give you a hug?" Leo was still hesitant, but Mia had already rushed forward. "Daddy, what do penguins look like? Do they bite?" Julian's breath hitched slightly, but he remained gentle. "Mia wants to see penguins. How about we go to the aquarium tomorrow?" Hearing this, Leo's eyes lit up too. He had never been to an aquarium. He had only been to a museum with his mom, but the animals there were all specimens. "Yay, yay," Mia cheered, tears still on her face, but now she was all smiles. Julian picked up Leo as well and asked, "Leo, how about we take your sister to the aquarium tomorrow?" Leo seemed to think for a moment before nodding. "Okay." That night, Serena couldn't sleep at all. The man beside her was both a stranger and deeply familiar. For the past 3 years, her hope had turned to despair as she waited. Now he was standing before her, safe and sound, making her feel as if it were all a dream she was afraid to wake up from. "My little Yue." He pulled her into his arms, inhaling her scent, his warm lips landing on hers. "These 3 years have been hard on you." She reached out to touch his face, that still somewhat unfamiliar face. "Your illness, is it completely cured?" He nodded, slipping the ring onto her ring finger. "My little Yue, we'll get our marriage license on Monday. Our family of 4 will never be separated again." The next day was Saturday. Serena and Julian walked hand in hand through the aquarium, each holding a child. They were a beautiful couple, and their children were exceptionally cute, drawing the attention of many. Ethan Crawford's life had been a mess lately. A recent investment had failed, leaving the Crawford Corporation on the brink of collapse. Now, he had been diagnosed with vertigo. The doctor said he was overworked and forced him to rest, warning that if he didn't, he could die suddenly. So, over the weekend, his older brother brought his son over, and his grandmother insisted he go to the aquarium with everyone to relax. Looking around at the families with children, a wave of sadness washed over him. He thought of his past with Serena. They were so good together back then. They were each other's first love and thought they would be together forever. But in the blink of an eye, everything had changed, all starting with a misunderstanding. He had seen her over the past 3 years, but they were now on opposite sides of a war. He didn't know how she had become the CEO of a major company like the Sterling Group. He had tried to talk to her alone several times, but all he received was her cold indifference. Just then, a soft, childish voice reached his ears. "Daddy, lift me higher, I want to say hi to the penguins." Ethan turned at the sound and froze. He saw Serena laughing and talking with a handsome man. She was holding a little boy, and the little girl who had just spoken was cheering on the man's shoulders. As if sensing something, Serena looked over and saw Ethan not far away. She glanced at him for a moment before looking away. Beside her, the man smiled. "Mia, did you get a good look? How about we let your brother have a turn on Daddy's shoulders so he can say hi to the penguins too?" Hearing this, Mia, though reluctant, nodded and said to Leo in Serena's arms, "Brother, You ride on Daddy's shoulders you're too heavy for Mommy to carry." So, they swapped the children in their arms and exchanged a smile. Ethan watched this scene, the light in his eyes completely dimming. This was the life he had once dreamed of, but now it was a lifelong, unattainable wish. And at that moment, the family of 4, hand in hand, walked away into the distance. The end.